Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we are finally going back to Dragon Age. Yes, we've been waiting a long time for Dragon Age information, and this summer, we're finally going to get it as BioWare has promised it. And so today, we talk about all three Dragon Age video games, Origins, 2, Inquisition, and dive deep into all these games. Today we're taking a look at Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked. It's a 3-game collection out on June 11th, including Rocket Knight Adventures, Sparkster Rocket Knight Adventures 2, and Sparkster. Included in this package is also a museum and a music player. I love the museum because you get to comb through old box art, old manuals, which is what we do here on Retro Rebound. You could also look at old game design documents, which is something I personally love combing through. The music player is great because the music in this game is an absolute bop, and also included is a brand new boss rush mode. This allows you just to skip to boss fights immediately. You don't have to go ahead and unlock it, so if that's the highlight of the game for you, you can go ahead and do that right now. Many of you know I am not a side-scrolling aficionado, so I'm very happy to say that Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked includes a rewind feature. So when I'm getting absolutely bodied in these levels, that's okay, because you can rewind, learn in real time. Also, you can save at any point in time, which is also crucial. So if you're stuck on a level, you want to take a break, come back later, or you just need to go somewhere, boom, you can save and get back to playing later on. This is great for retro gamers, those who love side-scrollers, action games. This is a perfect one for you. So thanks for checking out Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked with me. There will be a link down below if you're interested in picking this game up. It's out right now. For those of you unfamiliar with my Mr. Matty Plays channel, one of the core pillars of that channel is BioWare. We talk a lot about RPGs that mean a lot to me, Bethesda Game Studios titles, but BioWare is right there next to them. The reason I love RPGs, like many people out there, is because of BioWare. And one of my first discoveries growing up with role-playing games was Dragon Age Origins, which I've replayed over and over and over and over and have so many memories baked into it, but over time, lost some love for the entirety of the franchise. Like many, I wasn't crazy about Dragon Age 2 when it first came out. I was preoccupied with Skyrim. What is this? This isn't like Origins. What's going on here? Inquisition rolls around. A lot of filler, MMO-style content. This isn't what I signed up for back in 2009. Again, what's going on here? In that time period, I went back and did retrospectives on Mr. Matty Plays, where I played Dragon Age 2 again. I played Dragon Age Inquisition again. And don't worry, I was still always playing Dragon Age Origins in the first place, so that was no problem at all. But I reapproached them with an open mind because a phenomenal YouTuber, Jackdaw, just urged me on to give these games another try. And I'm so glad he did. He's a phenomenal creator, by the way. Please check him out. And now here I am. I used to be just a Mass Effect guy, but I love Dragon Age just as much. And I'm excited to talk about and celebrate these games here today because I feel much of the Dragon Age series is extremely misunderstood. Most of us can agree Origins is goated, and I'll get into that, of course, but I think many people forget just how compelling Dragon Age 2 can be, and how much, even as someone who really disliked Inquisition as my most anticipated game of 2014, and has come around to it with all the DLC and changes they made, is actually a really good game as well, for reasons you may not expect. So ladies and gentlemen, let's not delay any further. If you're new here and you're into nostalgic and retrospective content, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. Let's begin at the top with Dragon Age Origins. I got so many memories baked into this game, not just playing it, but my evolution as a gamer. When I first got Dragon Age Origins, my parents bought for me, on Christmas, my first ever HD television. And it was there that I fired it up, and I didn't know any better, so what I do, I plugged in my red, yellow, white cables, you know, the same ones that you see right here for my CRT. The same ones were going into my 28-inch brand new Vizio HD TV. And I see this stretched, blurred image, and I remember saying to my parents, think something's wrong with the TV, not really liking what's on screen here. So I unhook it, I put it down on the ground next to my whole entire entertainment setup, and I go back to my CRT for like 2 weeks. It's there that randomly I just saw that there were these other color cables that you could use for your HD television. So I bought these monster cables online, they come in the mail, I plug it in, and my mind is blown by the clarity of the image on screen. I immediately go out to my parents and I apologize for being a brat. I can't believe I had the TV on the ground. What's wrong with me? This game represents my awakening to HD gaming, something that I don't think you'll ever get the feeling of again. We had multiple instances like that growing up. When you hop from like the Game Boy to something like the Nintendo 64, that's a leap. You hop from the PS2 to the PS3, the Xbox to the 360, those are leaps. We don't really get tremendous leaps, the most recent one being Hellblade 2, which is phenomenal looking on a visuals front. It's absolutely stunning, but otherwise we don't get leaps. So for me, this is a core gaming memory leap on the visual front, and also it's a memory in my first time interacting with DLC. So I'm getting into next-gen gaming at the time, I'm figuring out what this PS3 is. Oh, I love Dragon Age Origins. Wait, there's more of this thing? And I can just go into this storefront and I can buy new stories and I can restart the game and play all of these in whatever order. Say less. So I bought them all, from Return to Ostigard to Awakening, which Awakening I've foolishly never played. I still haven't played it to this day. Don't worry, I'm trying to right that wrong this year because we're doing full replays of these games. So this game, yeah, it represents my first exposure to HD gaming, DLC, modern gaming, if you will, but in the most pure form, because I love how DLC was done in Dragon Age Origins. Just the piecemeal storytelling, the new loot. It was so exciting. But enough about me. Let's talk about you, BioWare. Let's talk about you, Dragon Age. As a massive Knights of the Old Republic fan, obviously this game speaks to my soul, and I'm not alone on that. We had write-ins over on patreon.com/retrorevive where you can join and be part of the show, just like Thorsk, who asked me if I feel like I'm playing KOTOR when I play Dragon Age Origins, because it's the same thing for him. And absolutely, when you look at the combat here in Dragon Age Origins and then you look at KOTOR's combat, they are cut from the same cloth, although Dragon Age Origins is dramatically evolved and significantly more difficult if you don't pause the game frequently and reorient your teammates and give them commands. These battles can go on for a long while, and it was to my understanding that Dragon Age Origins was originally supposed to be a continuation of the Baldur's Gate franchise before becoming its own thing. But absolutely, when you look at the real-time turn-based combat that's on display between KOTOR and Dragon Age, 100% Dragon Age Origins reminds me of KOTOR. But I will say I love the tactical depth, and if I ever got a Knights of the Old Republic 3, I imagine it would look a lot like this, just but with lightsabers and blasters and all that fun stuff. Dragon Age Origins, as I'm sure you already know, is a lot about build crafting. When you level up, what skills do you spend your points on? What attributes do you level up? And I love the descriptions for all the attributes because everything is so far-ranging that it makes every leveling up a very difficult decision to make. It's very hard to get God mode in this game, especially if you're like me, you decided for the millionth time to be an elven rogue because heaven forbid you play something different like a dwarf who's a warrior or something like that. Nope, you always got to be the elf, Maddie, and you're going to pay the price for that because elven rogues are very squishy in the opening parts of the game before you can really get momentum skills that up your attack speed and really let you deal out some serious damage. You also need to kind of balance your party properly. It's one thing to be like me and just run with your favorite characters. I love Liliana, she's one of my favorites. I love Morgan, she's one of my favorites. But now I have a squad with 2 rogues and a mage and 1 warrior, and that might not work out too well for me. We need Sten to step in here. We need a meat shield or something like that. But my love for these characters and the way they interact with the story just doesn't allow me to make smart choices. So combat is way more difficult at times than it needs to be. But I love the strategic element. I love the anxiety of leveling up. I love the feeling of getting great loot in this game. It reminds me of some of my favorite other RPGs like Fallout 3, where you get a meaningful piece of unique loot and it's truly, genuinely exciting. Also, weird thing I enjoy is the way currency's handled in Dragon Age Origins. Like you have bronze, silver, and gold, and as you get a certain amount of silver, that rounds up into gold, and the amount of bronze you get rounds up into silver, and I don't know, just seeing it all rank up was very oddly satisfying. I also love that Dragon Age Origins has a camp where you can just chill out and talk to your party members and catch up with them. Something that's kind of missing in Dragon Age 2 because everyone's spread across Kirkwall. We'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, I love how in Origins you have these moments of sitting on the talk and then the soundtrack kicks in, the camp theme. Oh my God, it's so good. This soundtrack is Einon Zur at some of his best work. It's absolutely fantastic and worth the playthrough alone just to hear what this man cooked up. Continuing on with the KOTOR comparisons, it's not just the gameplay, it's also the story design. Not the actual story itself, but the way things are fragmented. Every location has its own specific plot, but it's designed to drive into the main plot. So you'll go to the Circle of Magi and you'll find out that the mages and the Templars are feuding against each other. You go through this whole storyline and you figure out who's on the side of the right, who's on the side of the wrong. You make your choice at the end, and whoever you help out is going to help you fight the Darkspawn by the end of the game, because you are a Grey Warden and you are recruiting people, as is your duty when the Darkspawn arrive, to fight back against this threat. Otherwise, we shall all perish. And I won't spoil everything, but I'll just say there's points where you can choose between elves and werewolves. Like, there's some sick choices in this game, man. And especially when you get all the DLC, you get to go to things like Return to Ostagar, one of the most iconic scenes for me in gaming. Watching that scene unfold, King Kaelin getting betrayed, it just, oh my god, it cuts so deep. One of the sickest but most disturbing cutscenes in gaming for me, but absolutely the perfect hook. But these location-centric plots mixed together with moving the main story forward is my favorite form of story design. Recent games that have done it, like The Outer Worlds, I love it. Vampire kind of does it too. Like, I love when games move the story with the setting, because then it leads to really great world building and then even better characters, and then I'm just fully invested. Not just in the characters that surround me, Liliana being my favorite character in all of Dragon Age, but you have great, compelling characters that are still very relevant to the series to this day, like Morgan, like Alistair. I mean, especially Alistair. Are you kidding me? Especially Morgan. All these characters I mentioned are insanely relevant. And even your character, in a sense, is, because you have an origin story, which is unique to this game in that I don't see many teams doing this to this day, where you pick your race and you pick your class, and that defines where you start out the game. You have a whole unique intro to yourself, which personalizes your character deeply. And I wish more games did it, because I understand it's difficult to pull off, but oh my god, does it attach me to my character so much, because now, like, I get to choose where everything begins, who I'm going to become. It's just a level of agency that's so appreciated. Anyway, we still got 2 other Dragon Age games to go through today, so why don't we move things along first with the complete in-box experience for Origins, and then let's talk about Dragon Age 2. Here we have Dragon Age Origins for the PS3. I would recommend getting it on 360 if you don't care about trophies, only because the backwards compatibility makes it way better over there. I have it on PS3 because this is the first system I got it on. I want to get the Platinum Trophy for this one day, so that's why I got it here. The back of the box says, "From the makers of the Mass Effect series comes the dark fantasy epic. You are a Grey Warden, one of the last legendary Order of Guardians. With the return of the ancient foe and the kingdom engulfed in civil war, you have been chosen by fate to unite the Shattered Lands and slay the Archdemon once and for all. With included downloadable content of $15 value, this is one of the side companions you can get. And otherwise, no other details here, just a ton of writing right here. On the inside, you get some of the most beautiful key art for a video game ever. This is the Ultimate Edition disc, meaning it includes the DLC. Here we do have a manual, unfortunately not illustrated, but we do have it in black and white. Kind of fits the vibe of the game, but that is me coping a little bit. And you can see here, this is a classic BioWare manual, how dense it is. Look how long this is still going on for. We're just going over general content here. But as we tab through, they walk you through the classes. Really important information to get here, because when you are picking your background and all that stuff, one thing that Dragon Age Origins does, which makes it built very different, is it pigeonholes you. And I think that's a good thing in RPGs. Not every RPG has to do it, but I think it's really good when you commit to this stuff. Like, you can't go to a respec tree and be like, actually, I want to be a dwarf who's a mage. It's like, nope, sorry, you picked your elven rogue, Maddie. That's what you've got stuck with here. And so here you have specializations. You see rogue is the assassin, bard, duelist, and ranger. You get bonuses depending on which one you pick, which is, again, key to those anxiety-inducing character builds, your journal. This is just an explanation of the UI you're going to be seeing. Combat can go on for a while. Fatigue is something they also talk about. When you die, you have injury kits you have to use. Like, there's a lot of depth to this combat. Weapon styles, really important. You can interrupt spells. There's friendly fire, which you can definitely set off if you're not careful. Behavior that you can set for your teammates. That's also a really important part of customizing for combat. There is online play, if you will, which is, I think, just for online features like Dragon Age Keep. And then the credits, and we're here at the back where they are just promoting EA cheat codes and game hints. So otherwise, that is a complete box copy of Dragon Age Origins. Agent of Chaos 904 writes, "The Dragon Age franchise may be his first true love in gaming. However, one of his favorite things about it is the deep lore," and he asks how I feel about the deep lore, alongside a book suggestion. I'll start off with Dragon Age 2 by mentioning this. There may be no singular more important game to play in this trilogy, soon to be a 4-game series, than Dragon Age 2 because of the lore. We already see in many of the early trailers for Dragon Age Dreadwolf that Red Lyrium is a massive part of this game. And if that wasn't enough, you see those elements carry over into Dragon Age Inquisition with things like the Red Templars. Again, you see in those trailers for Dreadwolf, Red Lyrium, and I won't spoil it for you, but Dragon Age 2, at the core of its plot, has things like Red Lyrium, which start here, and the way it comes to be and its importance and what it does to Kirkwall, like super need to know information for Dragon Age Dreadwolf as far as I'm concerned. However, Dragon Age 2 was the black sheep of the franchise. It's the only entry in the series with a number attached to its name. Hilariously enough, like still to this day, you have Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age Inquisition, Dragon Age Dreadwolf, and then there's Dragon Age 2. Why does this one get the number? It's unbelievable, but it's a business decision at the top because originally this game was to be called Dragon Age Exodus. This is according to Mark Dara, who put this information out on his personal Twitter account. He's one of the lead producers of the Dragon Age franchise and actually returned to BioWare to work on Dragon Age Dreadwolf. I was like everyone else. I love Dragon Age Origins. I was ready for more of that. I see Dragon Age 2, and it is the exact opposite of everything I wanted. Voice protagonist, Set character when I like the Origins, nope. Set location, just Kirkwall? Nowhere else across Thetis? Nothing? Nope, I'm good. The visuals, uninspiring. You just had a few months ago Skyrim come out. So now this game is snake bitten by arguably the best fantasy RPG game ever made. At least many of us can agree, an all-time classic that many celebrate to this day. It felt like the success of Mass Effect was greatly influencing what was happening with Dragon Age moving forward. We had Mass Effect 1 and 2 by this point, and looking at Dragon Age, which had a short development time with its second entry, it's time to give Dragon Age its own Commander Shepard in Hawk, which I don't think it ever needed. What ends up happening is it limits the very strong elements of Dragon Age Origins, the writing, the dialogue choices, just the player agency that I talk so much about with things like picking how you start the game, picking how you respond to characters, are now limited to a set of emotions, a mistake that BioWare would go on to make again with Mass Effect Andromeda. You've likely heard all of that before. The reality is though, Dragon Age 2 is criminally underrated and horrifically misunderstood as a video game. I think yes, hindsight has been kind to it. Getting away from the zeitgeist of 2012 has been kind to it. It is still flawed when you look at its visuals, its amount of load screens. Of course, I'll hear you out on that, but you should play in back compatible on PC if you can, because that'll ameliorate some of your issues. But nonetheless, this game does have problems, but it is absolutely vital to play in this series moving forward. And not only that, I think it's a really good game. It introduces fun action combat that I think even compared to Inquisition, I kind of prefer Dragon Age 2's combat, I won't lie. Many people say, oh, it's just Kirkwall, and they get very flustered by the setting in just one city. But the plot here is super compelling. You see a little snippet of mages versus Templars in one of the many stories featured in Dragon Age Origins. But here in Kirkwall, mages are being suppressed. There's blood mages that they're fearful of, there's demons people are fearful of, and in the background of all of this, you have the Qunari lingering about with the best villain in the series in Arashok, who challenges the ideals of everyone in the game, including yourself, and shows how other races have destroyed this world, so the Qunari simply must lead. It's things like this that I think are dramatically overlooked in Dragon Age 2. It's a bit of a rush to the finale, but I just think that the characters and the plot elements are so good, especially if you end up getting heavily invested in this series. It's rich stuff. You have phenomenal companions attached to it, each with their own world purposes. You have Varric, who's the storyteller, also a bit of the comedic relief, but one of the best characters in all of Dragon Age. Then you have other ones like Fenris, who represents the elven suppression that you saw a little bit of in the alienage in Dragon Age Origins. You have mages like Meryl, who are capable of using blood magic, and you have to sway her one way or the other to use them or not, which can result in, by the way, I'll just say, like, wiping out an entire elven race in one part of the world. Like, it's unbelievable some of the things you can do with the characters in this game and what they represent. They're all attached to key plot elements in the game. Aveline is one of the city guards, and that's another important part of this game. Anders, even though he's a mage, very much represents the justice the Templars are kind of seeking out. Like, I don't know, I just think the characters are really good here. And I think when you look at it in the timeline it was made, it was like 16 to 18 months. I mean, that's Fallout New Vegas level stuff here, where they put out something really good in a short period of time where most teams would have crumbled. We still have one more Dragon Age game to go, so let's take a look at Dragon Age 2 complete in box, and then move on to the somewhat mixed reception of Dragon Age Inquisition. Next up, we have Dragon Age 2. Just like I mentioned with Dragon Age Origins, I recommend you get this on Xbox 360. Same reason, back compat. Here on the back, we have a much more detailed description of what's going on here. It says, from warrior to legend, embark on an all-new adventure in the Dragon Age saga. You are Hawk, one of the few to survive the destruction of your homeland, which is Lothering, which you visit in Dragon Age Origins. Now, forced to fight for survival, you must gather the deadliest of allies, amass fame and fortune, and seal your place in history. They say it's a great entry point. I don't know about that. They also say here, brutal and satisfying, which, yeah, I would agree with that. There's an online pass here, which to unlock the Emporium. I find it hilarious, but yeah, this is during a wave where EA was all about that online pass. Here again, we have a manual. The art is the same on the disc as it is on the manual, as the front of the cover, so nothing too crazy there like Dragon Age Origins, where I was really raving about that. Here we immediately get a breakdown of the controls. You can see, just based on the manual, not as dense of an experience. Like, they break down the classes pretty quickly here because it's very different from what you got in Dragon Age Origins. You can import events from the game because this is your first access to the Keep, which again is a defining feature in Dragon Age. Character progression, they walk you through all of that. All the abilities. You can see it's just kind of trimmed the fat off some of the depth and all the explanations required for Dragon Age Origins. The goal here was definitely to make something more accessible, and I think it works, but ultimately it doesn't lead to something that everyone who is a hardcore OG lover of Origins is going to fall in love with. There are cross-class combos, which is really cool here. They describe it as each class has a special status effect that can set up a cross-class combo in which a character of one class uses a talent or spell to hinder an enemy with an effect before a character of another class exploits it. So that creates really good teamwork comps. Really love that. Behavior tactics, again, is still there from Dragon Age Origins. Crafting, and then that's really it. You get to the back here, you can see the team is a little bit tighter just based on how it was laid out in Dragon Age Origins manual. Granted, the manual is a little bit shorter there compared to the taller one that you see on the 360. And you have the EA Insider on the back. And otherwise, that, ladies and gentlemen, is a complete box copy of Dragon Age 2. Derek Beek writes in, while I never played much of the games, I have a very vivid memory of my grandmother gifting me Inquisition for my PC in 2014, but not being able to run the game properly even on a good PC, so I walked away. What were your initial thoughts when you played the game in 2014, and did it deserve all the Game of the Year awards? If I could go back in time and just be a fly on the wall watching myself in 2014, what a transformation it was. I was so excited for Dragon Age Inquisition. It felt like my favorite fantasy RPG was now inspiring another favorite fantasy RPG of mine. Skyrim was influencing Dragon Age Inquisition. At the same time, we saw a hybrid between action and turn-based combat. There was more strategizing, so I was able to have that concession between the action combat I was still unsure of in Dragon Age 2 with some of the more tactical combat of Dragon Age Origins. I saw characters like Liliana were back. I was stoked to the high heavens for this game. After opening it up, you get to the hinterlands in this game and you realize just how much baseless, unexciting, uninspired side content is peppered throughout this game. And much of it becomes a necessity as you progress in the game because it's all centralized around the war table. And there was no one going to war against BioWare more than me, their biggest fan in 2014. When I saw this game win Game of the Year, I lost my mind. And still I think, I'm sorry BioWare, it's an absolute crime because that was just a historically bad year for gaming. And if I'm BioWare, that motivates me to do better, not worse, because, oh my God, we just got gifted Game of the Year when we barely earned it. Not because the game was awful, just there were so many blatant flaws with it. And it felt like we just have to give this award to someone. Let's give it to Dragon Age Inquisition, I guess. I mean, what else was there? You had games like Transistor, which was my personal Game of the Year. You also had games like Danganronpa 2. You had Shadow of Mordor. That could have been a good candidate, I guess, but 2014 was a historic low for interesting video games, to say the least. So yeah, when I played Dragon Age Inquisition, I was super disappointed with it, and I went on and on and on, and dozens of videos about how it let me down until I mentioned Jackdaw posted a comment on one of my videos saying, hey, try it out again. I seriously think you'd like it, especially if you play the Trespasser DLC. And so I obliged, and I am so glad I did. Much like I mentioned with Dragon Age 2, these flaws I've stated, like the war table, the way the game's balanced, are still issues present in Dragon Age Inquisition. They didn't go away, they're just more tolerable because I started to recognize the true strengths of Dragon Age Inquisition. A truly politically driven storyline is super interesting in the Dragon Age world. I mean, being the Inquisitor pretty much seats you as a politician, as you're almost in this Dragon Age Origins pocket of negotiating with people. Lots of permutations and alterations to various scenes in the game, multiple outcomes, lots of choice and consequence. Especially when you get to the DLC, I mean, the way things can go off the rails, like, I'm just gonna say, Iron Bull, I thought you were loyal. What's going on, man? But that was my fault. I made certain choices. I didn't hang around with certain people. This game, especially with its DLC attached, is a treasure trove of choice and consequence and just so much to do. The only problem is, oh my gosh, does the war table need to be rebalanced because you spend so much time farming annoying side content and useless collectibles and find X of that and kill X of this, and not actually interesting stories like the main one provides, so you miss out on the greatest parts of the game consistently. Trespasser speaks for itself, but there are other DLC I love, like The Descent, which feels like a return to really what Dragon Age Origins did well. Like, it's got a lot of vibes there because you're going into the deep alongside the dwarves, which is something you do in Origins. It also sets up the very important villain for Dragon Age Dreadwolf, which puts it in a really unique spot moving forward into the franchise here. Optimus Grimes writes in saying that, do you think for someone like me, this game will be a continuation of the trend where they're not really enjoying Dragon Age as much, or will it be able to bring back players of new and old into the fold? The big problem Dragon Age has right now is there is no Mass Effect Legendary Edition available for this franchise, and it desperately needs it. I think Dragon Age Origins could use just a visual uptick, but games like Dragon Age Inquisition could use a rebalancing that would make it infinitely better. And it's just tweaking some numbers behind the scenes, which takes effort and time, and I get that, but it's not, I'm talking an overall redesign. I'm just talking a little bit of a rebalance here. And Dragon Age 2, well, that one's kind of stuck in the middle. There's a number of ways you could go with that one, but it's tough because to play Dreadwolf, and I think fully appreciate it, you need to have the context, because more and more it appears that you need to know everything about Dragon Age 2, Red Lyrium, Solus, and so on, which are present across a myriad of games. Like, the catch-up is needed, and EA has made it exceedingly difficult to do so. Like, I'm playing Dragon Age Origins on my PC. It's like, okay, cool, at least I have access to all these here, and it crashes constantly with Origins. It's a terrible port. Like, that needs updating. This is why a Legendary Edition for Dragon Age makes so much sense, and why it doesn't exist before Dragon Age Dreadwolf blows my mind. Like, I think Mass Effect Legendary Edition was an easy win. Like, of course, go do that, but why didn't Dragon Age earn the same thing when it's an equally successful series in many ways? Meanwhile, Connor McCurdy asked about, for Dragon Age Dreadwolf, if there's anything I want to see return to the franchise. And I know many people will think like origin stories, and of course that would be really cool. Or Maddie's big galaxy brain dream of, oh yeah, let's go ahead and bring back the tactical style of combat. I'm not stupid. I know that's not going to happen. I think something that would actually be really great to bring back is meaningful side content. BioWare did that so well in games like Dragon Age Origins, and even there's some impactful side quests and loyalty missions you'll find in Dragon Age 2. I would love to see a slimmed down product from BioWare that focuses on what their best games ever always did. I'm talking about KOTOR, Jade Empire, Dragon Age, Mass Effect 1 and 2. What did they all do? They were like 20 to 30 hour games that were very replayable. It wasn't the hours logged in a single playthrough that mattered. It was about playing the game and just going through it time in, time out, and just seeing what new things popped up based on choices I made. And that includes in the side content. I'd love for this to become a focus for the company once more. Fingers crossed on that. Ladies and gentlemen, I kick it your way. What do you think about the Dragon Age franchise? Do you love it as much as I do? I know it was a long road getting here. I was originally just a Dragon Age Origins stan. It still is my favorite game in the trilogy, soon to be 4-game series, but I ended up loving all of them. Is that the same for you? Let me know down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.